Bayang Sumisinta kay Maria, the day of the simultaneous consecration of as many Catholic people as possible to the Immaculate Heart of Mary on June the 8th, the second Saturday of June. The CBCP has asked that in every cathedral, in every parish church, in all the churches and chapels connected with the Catholic Church, really, that as many Catholics, many of the faithful as possible, should gather to make a simultaneous consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Consecrating, that is, entrusting our people and our country, not just Catholics, but one people, all our people, and all our country, entrusting it to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The Mass will begin at 10 o'clock, June the 8th, Saturday. So, if I forget to do so, we would hope, I'm sure Archbishop Arguelles would back this, that every single one of you present will try to make as many people informed about this renewal, really, of consecration to the Immaculate Heart, and that you make sure that you can get as many people as possible in the cathedral or parish church or in your school community or whatever it is, that you make it a personal apostolate, that as many millions of Filipinos be on their knees on June the 8th, and that all of us offer our people and our country to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, always together, no? And that this be the first really great event of the Year of Faith. Okay? So, this poster and the little booklet that has been prepared to go with this poster, to go with this event, a booklet called Bayang Sumisinta kay Maria. They are available, and as you know, we cannot give it to everybody, but at least to communities and to parishes, no? And then maybe later on they can be made available through CBCP and through Bahay Maria, maybe at some cost, because it's a rather expensive little booklet. So that's the first one. The Filipinos' love for Mary. Pueblo, Amante de Maria. Are two of the great editors here are Mr. Louis Reyes and our great photographer Noli Amsuan, who took all the pictures here. It's a photographic album together with some rather good text of all the major Marian shrines and centers in the Philippines. We hope a second volume will come out of those shrines and places which are not included. But it's a very complete and I think very attractive because so many colored photographs of the devotion of the Filipino people to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. It's a very expensive book, but selling it as much as possible at a cheaper price. Magkano ba? 1,500. So that all communities, schools, parishes should have a copy of this. These are available outside. We cannot give them free because we have not yet won some kind of a lotto that will give us all the money for it. Now, my subject for this afternoon, which I thought I should not omit even though I find it a little bit difficult to speak with this tabinging mukha, no? Sabi nila, si Bernadette Zambrano had it recently. Pero maganda si Bernadette, no? Saka bata si Bernadette. Hindi ako ganon. Pagdasal na lang ninyo na gumaling ng mabilis. Hindi raw, at my age daw, will never not be completely okay later, but bahala na. Anyway, there is so much material that we want to cover, and although I don't have a watch, try to speak a little bit, mga 1 hour and a little bit more lang. So this is the first presentation. How many of you have heard about this already before? That you know about this? Very, very few, huh? Very few people know about this. Anyway, as the Archbishop and Father Vic de Jesus in his very super introduction to somebody said that the bishops, the Philippine bishops, I'm told that the main one pushing this was Cardinal Vidal, who's always had a very great devotion to the two hearts, to the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the Sacred Heart of Jesus, that at this time we are trying to make sure that we renew, it's a renewal of consecration to the Immaculate Heart at this time. Why? For two things, no? Father Vic de Jesus mentioned them. Number one, it is the year of faith. We have not yet had one common activity for the whole country in this year of faith. So this will be the first one. And we are trying to get as many millions, literally millions of Filipinos to be gathered together on June the 8th at the 10 o'clock Mass, wherein they will make this consecration of our people and our country to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. It's a year of faith. Without faith, you can't believe that this is an important event. No? What can happen? That several millions of Catholics consecrate themselves, their communities, the church, the country to the Immaculate Heart. It's faith. No? As Pope Benedict, when he was Cardinal Ratzinger, said in that document on the meaning of the third secret of Fatima, one of the great messages of Fatima is that the power of prayer and intercession to the hearts of Jesus and Mary is immensely greater than the power of armies and the power of bullets. You can only believe that in faith. So that's the first thing. In the year of faith, we make this the first great act of faith that the whole Philippines will do together. No? And number two, the bishops have also made a novena of years from last year, 2012, till 2021, when you're making 9 years of preparation for the 500th anniversary of the coming of the Christian faith to our country in the year 2021. No? So this action of consecrating ourselves and our country to the Immaculate Heart is triggered as the beginning, the powerful beginning of these two great events and the new evangelization which will accompany this novena of years for thanksgiving and rededication to the Christian faith. Now, so that's what we will discuss a little bit more at length in the time to come. I just want to make a pre-note. On the 13th of May, that's next week now, hindi ba? The 13th of May, 2013, Pope Francis twice asked the Patriarch of Lisbon, Cardinal Jose Policarpo, to consecrate the papacy, his pontificate to the Immaculate Heart of Mary at Fatima. No? He asked him now as an individual, but Cardinal Policarpo asked the entire Bishops' Conference of Portugal, all of those who can come, and all together, on May the 13th, they will consecrate, they will entrust the pontificate of Pope Francis to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And Cardinal Policarpo says, I am inviting all the bishops all over the world and all the Catholics all over the world to join Pope Francis as he consecrates his pontificate to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. No? So, it has not been given much publicity. Unfortunately, in Manila, Cardinal Tagle cannot be here because he's the main speaker in a theological conference in Kuala Lumpur. That's also election day. No? So special reason for us to go to Mass and offer the elections, as Archbishop Arguello said, to the Immaculate Heart, that it may be a good election, and that we join Pope Francis in consecrating his pontificate to the Immaculate Heart. It's not known also, so those of you who are present, tell your parish priests, tell the priest that you know, don't forget this, no? Not that he's the first one to do this. I'm sure Pope Pius XII already consecrated his pontificate to the Immaculate Heart, and certainly John Paul II. But he's doing this as he begins, and he's telling everybody, I'm consecrating my pontificate to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Join me. No? Again, you need faith to believe that this is an important event. But Pope Francis asks, you join me. All of you, help me consecrate my pontificate to the Immaculate Heart. I asked for the Yulito to show that EWTN video, because some of the essential things, the big central things in his own spirituality, his own vision of the Christian life, he presents there. Especially this question of popular faith, popular religion. If I have time, I'll develop it. And those of you who can write good English but know Spanish well, there is a section in the famous Aparecida document that the Latin American bishops put together in the year 2007. No? There is a section, chapter 6, where they speak of spirituality, the spirituality of the people. And there is a whole section on popular religion, on popular faith. You see, what has happened is that the Western theologians want a religion that is very academic, very conceptual. And they sort of look down on the simple faith of the people. It is one of the signs that the new Pope comes from the third world, where he says, you must not look down on this faith. It is the faith of the majority of Catholics, the vast majority of Catholics in our country. The faith is popular faith. And the European theologians, the Western theologians say, no, it has to be this thing with many concepts and many distinctions that comes from scholasticism. And this Pope says, no, that's wrong. The important thing about faith, as Benedict already pointed out, is a personal relationship with God. I was going to develop this later, but just to mention it now. He says, Pope Francis, that one of the reasons why the faith has been lost in the West is because it is highly conceptual, while popular faith is a relationship faith. The ordinary people, the people in the streets, the people who go to Quiapo, the people who go to Baclaran, it's a personal relationship with Jesus and a personal relationship with Mary and St. Joseph and the saints. So it's not abstract, it's not words. So this relativism, the secularization attacks this abstract faith, and the people lose it. One of our young priests just came back from Canada. He says the churches are empty. The churches are empty. He met families who have not been to Mass for 40 years, who used to go to Mass regularly. Not 40 years, but about... He was told all this happened in 20 years. Canada became from one of the most Catholic countries in the world to a place where the Catholic Church is hated and vilified. Ireland the same way. A bishop told Cardinal Tagle, it happened in 20 years. Ireland has thousands are literally signing and saying, I'm not a Catholic, I hate the Catholic Church. And that's because of this very highly intellectual and conceptual faith that has been pushed to us from the West as the real faith. No, the real faith, Pope Francis says, is the one that comes from the heart. It does not need many concepts. It's a relationship between you and the people. And he says, he said, that popular faith is the great religious resource of Latin America. It's because this popular faith, this popular piety, this love for our Lord and Our Lady, which is personal, not conceptual. Not that it is not important to have the conception, but that is not the faith of 95% of Catholics all over the world. So the people who have 2% of the faith are trying to dictate to those of 95 to 98% that is the faith. Mali. Tanungin mo sa kanila, if that is the faith, why are you all losing it? Why are all the churches in Europe empty? Why are all the churches in Canada empty? Where all the theology books are being produced, where all the great theologians are writing. Wala nang naniniwala. Those people who have very conceptual faith with all the definitions do not pray anymore. I tell you, no, isang beses nakit, pumunta ako sa isang misa. May isang madre na nagtuturo ng theology, nagbabasa ng dyaryo sa misa, dito sa Manila. And as I said, there are at least 2 seminaries in Manila where they are already teaching that Jesus is not the Son of God. So this highly conceptual, this highly academic faith is not the faith of the people. This is what Bishop Francis, Cardinal Francis, Pope Francis is telling us. That's where the faith of 95 or more Catholics all over the world is. How can you say that's such an inferior faith? No? So, I'm asking her, I don't think there is a translation of the Aparecida document. I had to copy it completely from the internet, and it's magnificent. And they say this part on popular faith was written largely by Pope Francis. Okay, so don't forget, May 13th, the consecration and entrustment of the pontificate of Pope Francis at the Fatima Shrine. Pope Benedict said when he went to Fatima in 2010, the message of Fatima is not exhausted, as people have said. He contradicted himself from his statement in that document on the third secret, where they say the third secret is about the assassination attempt of John Paul II, so it's now a matter of the past. No, he says, the message of Fatima is of great meaning and relevance for our time. And he says, he also awaits and hopes that by the centenary of the apparition in Fatima, which is 2017, there will be this great triumph of the Immaculate Heart. In other words, the whole meaning of Fatima, the center of the meaning of Fatima, is the triumph of the Immaculate Heart. And that's why this is a kind of an inspired event that we will have. And if we don't try to make this a really major event, ganon namamatay na rin ang pananampalataya dito sa atin. No? So everyone, those of you, the 1 or 2 who will not work for this, mahiya sana kayo. You should feel guilty if you don't do everything in your power to make this event of June the 8th a really massive event of faith in this year of faith. That's the first one. Okay. Now, Father Vic Jesus read the section from the pastoral message announcing this, no? Asking every bishop and every parish priest and every parish and every institution and every family to join in this act of consecration. So I received a text from a Madre Carmelite sister. I will not tell you what diocese. Sabi niya, send me the materials because our bishop never does anything about these things. Sinasabi raw, that's an act of CBCP, it's not concern me. No? So, if the bishop doesn't act and the parish priest don't act, let the laity act. Let the religious and the laity act. Hiyain mo sila. No? Let it be something that comes really from our heart. So, now, so the framework of this consecration, which is the Year of Faith, October 2013 to November 14, it's perfect, no? Because we make the national simultaneous act of consecration to the Immaculate Heart on June the 8th, which is the second Friday, the second Saturday now. And Our Lady asked Lucia for 5 first Saturdays. So this common consecration is second Saturday now of June. So June doesn't count among the 5 first Saturdays. So it will be July, August, September, October, November. Maybe the bishops will have a second great day in the first Saturday of November to close this 5 months, 6 months of consecration to the Immaculate Heart. All right. Now, just to say briefly, what do the bishops say that we must do? In the pastoral exhortation, they tell us that first, we have this great day of June the 8th, and then after that, it will be the Mass, and also that includes the Mass and Communion of Reparation on the first Saturday of each month. So July, August, September, October, November. First Saturday. And prayer and penance in our daily lives. No? That's the great message of Fatima, and Pope Benedict kept saying. That's the center of what we are to do according to Fatima. Prayer and penance in our daily lives. So we offer our daily lives through prayer and penance, no? In union with the Immaculate Heart of Mary. As much as possible, the daily recitation of the Rosary. Because Our Lady asked for this daily recitation of the Rosary, if at all possible, and she told Lucia of Fatima, which Lucia again repeated over and over again. She says there is absolutely nothing that the prayer of the Rosary cannot obtain. Maniwala kayo o hindi. Lucia of Fatima kept saying this over and over again because Our Lady told it to her. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, that the prayer of the Rosary, which is offered with great devotion, cannot obtain. You notice in that EWTN interview, Pope Francis says, we must pray. And he says, prayer is adoration, first of all, no. But he says, no, I'm not excluding petition. He says the Catholic must be a beggar. We constantly beg things from God, and it's good. When we beg things, itong mga high theologians saying, no, don't ask for things, no. Because prayer is too high. No, he says, no. He says, El Católico debe ser un mendicante. We must constantly beg for things because it shows that we depend completely on the Lord, no? So don't be afraid to ask, no? Don't be afraid to ask for little things. In the Family Rosary Crusade of Father Peyton, there was a story that they ran over and over again where a man was looking for a wife. Tumatanda na siya. And the woman was looking for a husband. Tumatanda na siya. And one day they were going up the stairs, they ran into each other, and the woman fell. And the two of them became. Hiningi nila ito sa Diyos. What a small favor for God to waste time on. And they've been married when they were shown on television for about 30 years now. Very, very happy. So the Pope says, don't be afraid to ask. Don't think that that's small. No? The great theologians say, don't lower prayer by asking. And sabi niya, no, be a beggar. Show God that you really depend on Him. But adore. Adore. That's important. We have to show God. We have to let the greatness of God enter into us. No? Okay. So, that's what the bishops ask us to do. And then there are specific pastoral activities and programs that are also being recommended to us. Now, this painting was made by Father Armantangi, the Paulinian father, here in Makati. And in Europe, in many of the countries in Europe, this is what they call the Schutzmantel Madonna, Our Lady with a mantle of protection is present in their churches, paintings in their houses, and so on. Here in the Philippines, it's not so well known, no? So this is one of the first efforts to make a Filipino Schutzmantel Madonna. It's Our Lady dressed in Filipino garments, no? She's holding the little child in her arms. Most of the European Schutzmantel Madonnas do not have the child. But here, the child Jesus is there holding the rosary, showing it to be made. And Our Lady's Immaculate Heart is very visible, and the Sacred Heart of Jesus is very visible. And there are representatives of the laity, of the religious, of the indigenous peoples, of all kinds of society under the mantle of the Blessed Virgin. In the document of Aparecida, that's the name of the document of the Latin American bishops in the year 2007. Aparecida is a town in Brazil, no? Which has probably the biggest Catholic church in the world. 45,000 people can enter into the church in Aparecida. And the Benedict XVI held there the meeting of the Latin American bishops. In the document of Aparecida, it's a very strong affirmation that it is the Blessed Mother who brings the gift of communion of her Son and becomes a force of unity for the people. You know, before the EDSA revolution, there were all kinds of groups trying to make a united front against the dictatorship. When it finally happened, it was the Blessed Mother who did it. She was the one who gathered the forces of peace for a peaceful overthrow of the dictatorship. So even in social and political events, the Blessed Mother can enter in if it is part of the good of humanity, the good of a people, and the future work of the Church. So, Father Armantangi's Schutzmantel Madonna is that painting there, and we hope that people will understand what it means. They may not like the painting or they may like it, but the idea that Our Lady is the one who gathers our people together. That's what the Aparecida document says. In all the countries of Latin America, without exception, it is the Blessed Mother who has gathered the people together and brought them to her Son. If she does that with this act of consecration, if somehow we can gather together, work together, including the government, no? Including the Catholics in the government, work together so that we can be more and more one people. What can we not do if we work together? Ang problema sa Filipino, siyempre ganun na, naghihiwalay tayo agad. I always tell the story. There was an SVD priest who had gotten sick in the Philippines and he was going back to Europe, but he's assigned to the United States to recover his health. He spent about 4 months first in Bangkok before he went to the States. And since he came from the Philippines, he gathered the Filipinos and formed a Catholic group. Then he went to Bangkok, to Washington, D.C., and then went back to Germany. And he came back 4 years later, coming back to the Philippines. The group that he had founded 4 years ago was now 5 groups. Because every Filipino group, there is one leader who wants to be boss. Becomes the datu. So it breaks up into, and this is what you're asking, no? That we become one people. That instead of fighting one another, instead of the church fighting the government fighting the church, let's find ways of working together for the good of our people and for the glory of God. So that's the point here. So in the purpose, what is the purpose of this common consecration? It's on the page 11 of the booklet. It's a reaffirmation that the Philippines is Pueblo, Amante de Maria. Huh? Pope John Paul said that when he was here. Christianity is a phenomenon, and one of the marks of that phenomenon is that it's a people gathered around the Blessed Mother. And our catechism, the Catechism for Filipino Catholics, says that it is the distinguishing mark of the Catholic faith in the Philippines, our devotion to the Blessed Mother. And it says in a part on the priest, in PCP 2, that those priests who do not promote devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary in the Philippines are not really for the Philippines. Umuwi na sila. Because it is one of the distinctive marks of Filipino Catholicism, but something that comes from the heart. In the document of Aparecida, they say now, about popular piety, we must deepen. And they say, no, it's very deep. This is a very intellectual attitude. It's not deep, mababaw. What is necessary is that it becomes lined up with the doctrine of the gospel. No? It's not a lack of depth. It's a lack of more direct contact with the scriptures, the spirituality of the scriptures, and the spirituality of the Eucharist. Okay. So, that's a reaffirmation of the Pueblo, Amante de Maria by our present generation. Every generation learns everything anew. Somebody as old as me, 2 years before becoming 90, I know that the one generation after the other, everybody forgets everything that came before. The second generation doesn't know what the first generation says. The older people, ay naku, pagod na kami dyan. Ano yun? Hindi pa namin naririnig yun. So every generation has to be taught anew. We have to make the meaning of the important things in our faith and in our life, make them new for each new generation. We forget that, no? So this act of consecration is to make the present generation, and we hope the future generation, something very important. This young priest of ours just came back from Canada, and he found himself one evening with a group of young people. They started asking him about the faith, the most elementary things. What is the Mass? What is that? These are children of Catholic families. They had never heard about it. So he says, ganun pala. And then, after he spoke, this is a young Filipino priest. They said, Father, can we meet you again? We have never heard these things. And ang ginagawa ng mga pare, nagbabasa ng malalaking libro. So, and then as Archbishop Villegas, in that document signed by Archbishop Cebu, Palma, Live Christ, Share Christ, we have to make this the effort of the new evangelization, to share Christ. No? And as we said at the beginning, Pope Francis said to Cardinal Tagle, we look upon the Philippines as a nation of hope for the future of the Church. So it is a mission he gave to us, he said, the deepening and intensification of our Christian faith through our unique love and devotion to the Blessed Mother, and our renewed operative preferential love and concern for the poor. A love for Jesus and the Blessed Mother which does not show itself in a preferential love for the poor is not the real love. The love for the Blessed Mother and the love for our Lord must pour itself out, first of all, for the poor. The materially poor, the spiritually poor, and so on. But that is one thing of the Christian faith. The love of God and the love of neighbor are joined together. And that's what the Pope said to Cardinal Tagle. Now, let's do a little bit of theology, because that's why I was imported here for. And so, first, the consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Let's go to the booklet first, just very briefly, to say something about this consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. First of all, the predecessors, no, what we are imitating, as it were, at this time of this consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Let me just go a little bit through the history, because I think it's just important. That there are many other events Pero Pope Pius XII is the first one formally recorded as consecrating the world, the entire world, to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, moved by the request of the Blessed Mother made through Sister Lucia dos Santos in Fatima. And he says, to you, to your Immaculate Heart, we entrust, we offer, we consecrate not only Holy Church, the mystical body of your Son, Jesus, this church which suffers and bleeds in so many places, in so many ways, but also the whole world, torn by mortal strife, ablaze with hate, victim of its own sins. No? So that's the first recorded consecration of the entire world to the Immaculate Heart of Mary by a Pope. No? Then, but after Pope Pius XII's formal act of consecration, we go already to John Paul II. Not that there were not consecrations. Pope Paul VI went to Fatima and made a consecration also, but it was not, as it were, heralded as a major event. But Pope John Paul consecrated the world formally, in a formal act, 5 times to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. No. And he says in his book, Crossing the Threshold of Hope, that the most, as it were, the most central thing that he brought to Rome when he was elected Pope was his Polish love for the Blessed Virgin Mary. It says that in the Crossing the Threshold of Hope. That's the most central thing that he brought to the papacy, was the love that he learned in Poland for the Immaculate Heart. So, formally, in the year 1984, on the Feast of the Annunciation, 25th of March, Pope John Paul put an image of Our Lady of Fatima in front of him at St. Peter's Square. And with all solemnity possible, he made the act of consecration of the whole world to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. All right. And the bishops of the Philippines have been very good in supporting whenever the Pope asks for this. No? Through a solemn, public, and collegial act, many of them gathered in the Manila Cathedral. Most others in their own diocesan cathedrals led the national consecration of the Filipino people to the Immaculate Heart of Mary in the 8th of December 1983 and renewed it in the 8th of December 1984. Then there was the bi-millennium year, the second millennium of the birth of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Pope John Paul recommended to all the bishops in the world that they should have a Marian year. Only 2 countries had a Marian year, the Philippines and the Church, the Catholic Church in the Holy Land. And then we had, after the bi-millennium year, we had the EDSA Revolution, where Our Lady gathered together in peace, all the forces of peace, to bring down the dictatorship. No? And then in 1987, the first ever International Theological Pastoral Congress on the Alliance of the Two Hearts was held in Manila from 30 November to 3 December 1987, and it ended with a solemn act of consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary led by 3 cardinals, Cardinal Sin, Cardinal Vidal, and Cardinal Stephen Kim of Korea, who came here to join in this consecration. So that was in 3rd of December 1987, and then more recently, in the year 2010, before the election, the last election, we had a year of renewal of consecration offered to the Two Hearts, and then now, this Cardinal Vidal has pushed for this national act of consecration. Okay? So a little bit of background. This is a renewal. It's not the first time. But it's the first time that we are being asked to do it all together in the entire country at the same time. Really, it will be wonderful. If there are millions of us kneeling down at Mass during that particular morning, the morning of June the 8th, and sabihin natin, mga even 5 or 6 million, maybe more, no? Can make that act of consecration together. Hindi ba maganda? And what that can do in the world of grace and in the world of God's power, who knows? See, what these special acts of devotion and so on, what do they mean? No? The saints tell us what happens is, para bang God makes a new source of energy, a new source of power. Para bang God makes a tremendous, sabihin natin, a tremendous lake of water that can now pour out. And he says, it will pour out only if you open up to it. So our acts of consecration, our acts of dedication are like opening canals and opening faucets for this new, great new ocean of grace that God wants to give us. It's there. God gives it to us. He says, I have created a new ocean of grace to pour out to the people. But you have to open the faucets. You have to turn on your television sets. Otherwise, this will be a power that will not be used. So when an act of this is made, that is, millions gather together, and every day and on that particular day, they turn on the faucet of the power of God's mercy to pour over the land. What it can do, we really don't know yet. No? But as Pope Benedict said in that document regarding the third secret of Fatima, that we as Christians believe that the power of prayer is infinitely greater than the power of armies and the power of bullets. Faith, the year of faith. Okay. So what our consecration means and hopes, no? It is to be done in every parish. All of us who make up the Catholic Church in the Philippines, no? So that we can become isang bayan, isang bansa, a true people of God in this world, through conversion. Nothing happens without conversion. In individual lives, nothing happens without conversion. Because conversion is the opening of the heart to God. Letting God come in. That's what conversion does, no? Through sincere sacrificial offering of our daily lives, through prayer and penance. Pope Benedict said, at the very heart of the message of all the apparitions of the Blessed Mother, without exception, is penance. The modern world does not believe in penance. The modern world does not believe in self-sacrifice. But with all the apparitions of the Blessed Mother, never does she omit that there has to be penance, repentance, sorrow for sin. No? No? Because the great sin, Pope John Paul says in his document on confession, is the fact that most people today believe there is no such thing as sin. I was shocked once in a meeting of priests where several priests said to me at the meeting, we don't believe in sin. These are Roman Catholic priests. We don't believe in sin anymore. That's an ancient psychological idea. But every time Our Lady appears, penance, sorrow, repentance for sin. No? And so, in the past history of our people, it has been Our Lady who was instrumental in bringing us together. And it begins with conversion and the opening of the heart to God. Okay. So, that's the first thing with regard to the history of the consecration. Now, very briefly on the theology of consecration, which is very simple, really. Theologically, it is incorrect to say, in absolutely correct theology, that we consecrate ourselves. Pope John Paul tried to change the language to fit this idea that we do not consecrate ourselves. It's only God who can consecrate. Because consecrate means to join to God, to unite with God. We cannot unite ourselves with God. God has to unite himself to us. So, Pope John Paul, asking the theologians to work with him, to find how to explain this, centers on that statement of Jesus. In John 17, John 17:9, 17:9 and verses 17:19. For these I pray, Jesus said, for those whom you have given to me, for they are really yours. So, with Jesus, consecration always begins with the Father. The Father takes people and makes them His own. For these you have given me, for they are really yours. So everything begins with God. Consecrate them by means of truth. Your word is truth. These are words of Jesus. I consecrate myself for their sakes now, that they may be consecrated in truth. Father Rene Laurentin says, the Pope there says, this is the meaning of consecration. First of all, Jesus has consecrated Himself. Jesus, as the Son of God, the second person of the Blessed Trinity, can unite Himself to God on His own. It's the Son uniting Himself in love with the Father. Now, when He says, I consecrate myself for their sakes now, that they may be consecrated. So all consecration is inserted into the consecration of Jesus to His Father. So literally, correctly, we do not consecrate ourselves. Jesus consecrates Himself, and He takes us into His consecration. We have to be very clear on this, because even Protestant theologians find this very strange doctrine, that the Catholics speak of ourselves consecrating ourselves. They say, theologically, you cannot do that. Only God can consecrate us. So Jesus has consecrated Himself as man, and when He asks us to join ourselves to Him, we are consecrated by joining ourselves to Him. So the Blessed Mother joined herself all her life to Him. She is the first of the consecrated ones. Yung consecration ni Jesus, ipinasok ang Birhen, unang-una sa lahat, sa consecration ni Jesus. So, when we say we consecrate ourselves to Mary, that is, we join ourselves to the consecration that Mary does when she inserts her consecration in the consecration of her Son to the Father. Please make that very clear. It's bad theology, it's wrong doctrine to say that we can consecrate ourselves. What we do is we insert ourselves, we entrust ourselves to the Blessed Mother, who then takes our consecration, our entrustment, and puts it with her own consecration in the consecration of Jesus, and Jesus puts Himself into the heart of the Father. This is the main thing about the theology of consecration, that you make it very clear. No? Make it very clear. It is Jesus who consecrates us. Okay. So, but the act of freedom that we make is that we make this free act of asking to be entrusted, to be inserted into the consecration of Mary's heart, and to be inserted with Mary into the consecration of the heart of Jesus. Is that clear? Tulog na yata kayong lahat. Sino pa bang hindi tulog? There are some who are already snoring. I can hear it from here. No. Okay. So, Pope John Paul's teaching, and this is a quotation, is to consecrate ourselves to God through the virginal and motherly hands of Mary, through her Immaculate Heart, is to consecrate ourselves to her as the mother of Jesus and the mother of us all, as a mother of unbounded love and mercy. The Blessed Mother in 1929 told Sister Lucia that she was being mandated to dedicate herself to the work of bringing together, side by side, the devotion to the heart of Mary and the devotion to the Sacred Heart. That was a job given by the Blessed Mother and by our Lord to Lucia, to bring the two together. No? I had several meetings with Cardinal Sin and priests, and there was one priest who was very strong that every time somebody says twin hearts, he or she is a heretic. Twin. So he says, never let anybody use the expression twin hearts. They're not twin hearts. Because one is the heart of the Son of God, who is God, and the one is the heart of a creature like us. So it's two hearts, not twin hearts. And if you have said twin hearts according to this Monsignor, you're a heretic. But I think the nuance is correct. Say of two hearts, the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and the word of Pope Benedict is the pierced heart of Christ. Because pierced comes from the Scripture. No? And it's the water and the blood that flow from the pierced heart of Christ. Okay? Now, I hope that's clear. That's a little theology. It's a little, but it's quite important, I think. So some specifics of the devotion and consecration to the Immaculate Heart: penance and prayer, reparation for sin. Again, what is the meaning of reparation? Theologians of our time say that an old idea of reparation, which is not heretical naman, is that we console Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. But they say theologically that is incorrect. Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament is the risen Christ. He cannot suffer. So we do not console him. So the idea of reparation as consoling the heart of Jesus now is theologically ganon. So what is reparation? Reparation is joining ourselves to the Paschal mystery of Jesus, where he offers his life, passion, death, and resurrection as a means of redemption from sin for all of us. In other words, Jesus offers his life, passion, death, and resurrection in love and adoration to the Heavenly Father, so that the Heavenly Father and he together open a way of redemption and salvation for all humanity. And reparation for sin is joining ourselves to that offering of Christ. Again, only God can really repair. Only God can really bring forgiveness. So we join Jesus in his offering of himself to the Father for us. So again, the same theology of consecration. It does not come from us. Consecration does not come from us. Reparation does not come from us. It comes from Christ. And we enter into the reparation of Christ. We enter into the consecration of Christ. Malinaw ba yun? Yun lang ang talagang kailangan natin gawing malinaw para hindi tayo magkagulo. So, he says, reparation is then understood as devoutly joining in, sharing in the Paschal mystery of Jesus, as sharing in the mission of Jesus to vanquish sin, to overcome the power of sin in the lives of human persons and in the life of human communities. So reparation then means sharing in the sacrificial and redeeming work of Jesus. And in him and through him, overcoming sin and repairing the effects of sin, repairing the effects of selfishness and injustice, of violence, as these destroy human lives in today's world. So that's the basic theological clarification that we should keep in our hearts. Everything begins with God, and everything is done in Jesus, through Jesus, and with Jesus. Not us. We enter into Jesus. We enter into the heart of Mary. The heart of Mary enters into the heart of Jesus. So, and Pope Paul VI found this formula. The most complete reparation is building up a civilization of love. He says that's the most complete reparation that can be made, that we join Jesus in trying to build up in our midst a civilization of love. So that's the theological thing that has to be explained. And I think that's why I was asked to come here and try to explain a little bit of what the bishops are talking about. So it's very urgent. I want to, before we end, anong oras na ba? Doon ka sa watch. I have no watch na. What time is it? 3:08. I've been speaking for 45 minutes. So at least in 15 minutes. It's tied up with Fatima. And let's say a few words about Fatima. You see, Pope Francis wants to consecrate to bring, to entrust to Our Lady of Fatima his pontificate. And John Paul 5 times entrusted the whole world to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Now, what is the meaning of this? When the third secret of Fatima was revealed and exposed in the year 2000 by the Congregation of the Doctrine of Faith, Cardinal Ratzinger wrote a document trying to explain the basic message of Fatima. And let me say this. First of all, he says in the Ratzinger report, there is a stern warning launched from Fatima that is directed against the prevailing frivolity, a summons to the seriousness of life, of history, to the perils that threaten humanity. Fatima reconfirmed, but only reconfirmed, the urgency of penance, conversion, forgiveness, fasting. And he said, therefore, we did not publish the third secret, but because it would expose the Church to the danger of sensationalism. There's this, those of you who follow the Fatima events, up to now, there's a very strong group or groups in the Church who believe that the full third secret has not been revealed. And we don't know. We don't know. Now, many of the things that have come, for instance, the 2 statements of Benedict, who has read the document when he went to Fatima in 2010, say very strongly the message of Fatima is not yet finished. It's very relevant today. And he ties it up with the triumph of the Immaculate Heart, not with the event of killing the Pope trying to assassinate John Paul II. He links it with the triumph of the Immaculate Heart that is to come. And secondly, something very surprising, he linked the crisis of sexual misconduct by priests in the Church to the secret of Fatima, which was never mentioned in the document of the year 2000, but which was mentioned by others who had read the document before, that there would be some kind of an apostasy in the heart of the Church. And Pope Benedict, in his address to the newspaper people at the airplane going to Fatima, says that this scandal, he's always been very strong against the sexual scandal of the clergy. He says, this is part of what the message of Fatima means. So, in his book, The Light of the World, page 165, he says, the fundamental significance of the Fatima event, he says, and the purpose of our revealing the third secret was to refer to a critical point, a critical moment in history, by which I mean the whole power of evil that came to a head in the major dictatorships of the 20th century, and that in another way is still at work today. So for Benedict, the central significance of Fatima is the rising of a power of evil in our time. That there is a massive rising of the power of evil in our time. He says it came to head in the major dictatorships, that's the Nazi dictatorship and the communist dictatorship. But he says it is still at work today. And as we said in 210, he said that the crisis of sexual evil among the clergy is part of this power of evil that is trying to destroy the church. He says the solution against the power of evil is not some great political actions. They are not the great political actions are not the answer to the power of evil, he said. The answer to the power of evil, he says this in his book, The Light of the World, can only come from the transformation of the heart through faith, hope, love, and penance. In this sense, the message is precisely not a thing of the past. Even the two major dictatorships have disappeared. The church continues to suffer, and even now there is tribulation. There is a power which tries to trample down the faith. So this secularization, this secularism power which is trying to destroy the faith, that is part of this rising up of a power of evil which Fatima is all about. This power of evil, according to Benedict, is not limited to the Nazi dictatorship or the communist dictatorship, but to a great surge of the power of evil. There is this power which tries to destroy the faith. What we beg and pray for, that the power of evil is restrained, that the energies of good might regain their vigor. You could say that the triumphs of God and the triumphs of Mary are quiet, but they are real nonetheless. In his book on Jesus Christ, on page 44 of the first volume, he asks that question again. What did Jesus bring to the world? He did not change society. He did not give food to everybody. He did not create material well-being for the whole world. He did not cure all evils. He did not cure all sicknesses. What did he do? He says he brought the real God. What Jesus gave us was the reality of God. And he says, we do not understand how great a gift it is because we are not using the power of God. We are not bringing into our own lives the power of God so that the power of God can work through us. He says, for instance, this thing about social sins and social structures. Yes, they are, he says. We need to change social structures. That's the duty of every person, not only of every Christian, but of every human being. They have to try to create a better society, a more moral, a more fraternal, a more just society. But that is not specifically the work of Christians. The work of Christians is to bring God inside that. You see, he says, all the kingdoms that Satan offered to Jesus, all the great social institutions that Satan offered to Jesus, they're all gone. But the work of Jesus continues. And the work of Jesus, the work of the church, and he says the work of the priest, is not primarily to change social structures, but to change hearts. The work of every human being is to try to create a better world. Every human being. But the specific work of the Christian is to bring God into that work. And he says, so many in the Christian church have secularized themselves, so they're just taking part in that work of bettering society. They are no longer interested in bringing God into the work. What's the name of that former La Salette priest? Bob Garon. Bob Garon gave a talk in our seminary many years ago. He says he went to two seminaries and he was told by the spiritual father in one seminary, Father, do not talk about holiness in our seminary. That is past. That's no more. Pasado. We are making priests who will change the world. Who will change society. Not holiness. That's past. And then a rector in another seminary said, Father, don't talk about prayer and those things. what we're insisting with our seminarians is not prayer and personal holiness, but changing society. Is changing society bad? No. Benedict says it's important enough to give our lives for it, but it's not the specific work of the Christian. The specific work of the Christian is to bring God into that work. Because only when God enters into a work like that does the work endure. All the kingdoms that were offered by Satan to Jesus are all gone. But St. Francis of Assisi lived 800 years ago and his work is still going on. See? Because God is inside that work. Okay. So now he was asked, what is the meaning of this triumph of the Immaculate Heart? And here he apologizes because he says, I'm too much already of a rationalist person. He says, when he said in Fatima in 2010 that we should all hope for the triumph of the Immaculate Heart will come before 2017, he says, this is the equivalent meaning of our praying for the coming of God's kingdom. That's his interpretation. He says, this is my interpretation. The statement was not intended, I am too rationalistic, he says, to express any expectation on my part that there is going to be a huge turnaround and that history will suddenly take a totally different course. The point is rather that the power of evil is restrained again and again. And again and again the power of God himself is shown in the mother's power. And the mother's power, in the mother's power, it keeps alive. So, for him, the meaning of the triumph of the Immaculate Heart is that in this century, in this period of the 20th and the 25th century, 21st century, where there is a tremendous surge of the power of evil, that the power of God, the power of good, passing through the hands and the heart of the Blessed Mother, will diminish the powers of evil and reinvigorate and give new life to the powers of good. That's his interpretation. He says it's a private interpretation. So, for him, the fundamental meaning of Fatima is that we are living in an age of a tremendous power of evil trying to destroy the faith. That must be the inspiration behind the year of faith. We realize that in our own country also, there is a power of evil that is trying to destroy the faith. That is trying to say, if you are modern, then give up all these old superstitions. Give up these images of the Blessed Mother and be modern. No? And he says, no. We ask the Mother of God to ask the power of God to enter and to revive the power of good and to revive the faith in our hearts. That's what we're asking for. So that's what it is. Cardinal Vidal now asked for this consecration to the Heart of Mary because he says, he knows also from talking to people, that there are plans, for instance, in Congress to have laws one after the other to allow abortion, to allow divorce, no? To have same-sex marriages and all this, because it's being done in all the former Catholic countries in Europe. No? And he says, therefore, there is a gathering together of the powers of evil to try to change our society. And we must call, through the help of the Blessed Mother, a gathering together of the forces of good, which Benedict says, the power of God passes through the hands of the Blessed Mother. Pope John Paul, I'm trying to finish in time. Pope John Paul said in his book, Crossing the Threshold of Hope, did I bring it? Yeah. This Cardinal August Hlond, H-L-O-N-D, was primate of Poland before Cardinal Wyszynski. The communists had already entered. And John Paul says, the moment that he was actually dying, he said, the victory when it comes, will come through Mary. And he said, when I was a bishop in Poland, I began to see this actually happening. The victory over communism and the evils brought by communism was coming through Mary. He says, Jesus wants his victories pass through the hands of Mary. And he says, when I became Pope, it's all in this book, Crossing the Threshold. It's very nice, I've read this so many times. He says, when I became Pope, and I saw this on an international scale, and I understood that the same formula is true. The victory of God, when it comes, will come through the hands of Mary. That's the meaning of the triumph. Not that we will conquer evil once and for all, but that the present power and concentration of evil, which is in the world today, will only be broken when the power of God enters into our hearts and into our communities. And that power of God will come to us through the Blessed Mother. The victory, when it comes, will come through Mary. And Pope Benedict XVI, when he was still Joseph Ratzinger, wrote, commenting on the document of John Paul II, Redemptoris Mater, says, whenever there is a moment of darkness and crisis in the world, the Church raises the banner of Mary. And when the Church raises the banner of Mary, she raises the banner of hope. So that's the meaning of this act of consecration. The CBCP bishops are raising the banner of the heart of Mary for these 6 months of the year of faith. And they say, consecrate yourselves, not just a formality. Really pour your heart and soul into this consecration. We are raising the banner of Mary, and we're raising the banner of hope. And the more Filipinos will really consecrate their lives to Mary, consecrate their communities to Mary, the more this hope will rise. And there will be a significant defeat of the powers of evil. Not once and for all. Every generation it has to happen. But for this century, this 20th and 21st century, this great gathering together of the forces of evil, and we see that. We see it everywhere. No? Asking Mary is, open our hearts to the power of God passing through your hands so that we may move forward in a great moment of hope. The victory, when it comes, will come through Mary. Thank you.